The first commander of Tuskegee Army Airfield was Major James Ellison. During his brief time there, he did not heed to any local pressure regarding race relations.
The first one, Major Ellison, was thought to be too lenient, so he was replaced after a few months by Frederick von Kimball, who was an obvious and out-and-out racist and who was determined the program would fail. And this attitude was expressed in a War Department study published in 1925 after 3 years of study by the students and faculty at the Army War College, who studied the performance of black soldiers in World War I and came to some very ridiculous conclusions, the bottom line of which is that Negroes are a subspecies of the human family. And drawing inferences from that, Negroes are cowardly, undependable, and so on nonsense. Well, that attitude pervaded the Army Air Corps.
The base commanders they were dyed-in-the-wool Southerners still fighting the Civil War. And they were not interested in the cadets succeeding. They were interested in keeping them from flying.
The climate for blacks in the South was one of hanging and total segregation. So it wasn't a place that I was really looking forward to going to, to tell you the truth.
See, I was born in the South. I was accustomed to being discriminated against and segregated. I rode on the back of the streetcar. I drank out of segregated fountains. I didn't try to go into restaurants and hotels where I knew I wasn't welcome. That's the way I was raised.
I got my first real shock that reminded me of what America was really like when we got what I call the idiot line. It's a line they call the Mason-Dixon line, which is demarcation between North and South.
In a scene that would play out repeatedly for hundreds of black cadets traveling south, the arrival at the Mason-Dixon line called for the segregation of the train's passengers. Despite having government-issued first-class tickets, they were rudely forced to the front of the train to what was known as the Jim Crow car.
Trains, they had these Jim Crow cars that they called them, sit behind the coal car. And in those days, we didn't have air conditioning, so you had the windows open. And the trains are going, and they're puffing up steam, soot comes in, and you kind of messed up.
A lot of the treatment that we got was ignored for so many years, until we begin to say, well, now, wait a minute, this is enough of this.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States
we were in such a state of disarray in terms of being ready for a war. After World War I, the nation, the civilians and the military, had become complacent because of the Atlantic Ocean on the east and the Pacific on the west, and because air power had not been shown to be as effective as it can be during World War I. People here felt, well, we are invulnerable. We can't be hurt by any enemy so far away. So the military armed forces had been allowed to diminish to almost nothing. Hundreds of thousands of men in the Army instead of millions and so forth. So we had to arm quickly.
With the advent of war, the U.S. military underwent a major mobilization and reorganization. Tuskegee Army Airfield would receive a new commanding officer.